The pen shouldn't feel this heavy. It's just plastic and ink, the same kind of pen I once used to sign school permission slips and birthday checks. But here, in this quiet law office on Main Street, it feels like the weight of my entire life is balanced on its tip. The room smells like paper and old coffee, with that sharp hint of lemon cleaner every office seems to use. A clock ticks on the wall, slow, precise, unforgiving. Tick, tick, tick. On the table in front of me is a neat stack of documents. My will, the papers for my house, the land my grandfather bought with coal mine wages and damaged hands long before I was born. To my right, my phone vibrates again. Same name, same smiling photo. Daniel, my son. I don't turn it over. In a few minutes, I'm going to sign away the one thing he believes already belongs to him. And when I finally speak to him again, I will say something a mother never imagines she'll have to say to her own child. Before I go any further, let me ask you something. Where are you right now? Are you in your kitchen, rinsing dishes with your phone propped against the sink? Lying in bed with the lights off, the house quiet? Sitting alone in a chair that used to hold two people? If this story touches you, you don't have to explain anything. Just tell me where you're listening from and how old you are. Kitchen, 62. Bedroom, 70. Living room, 55. I read those numbers. I understand them. Across the desk, the attorney clears her throat gently. "Mrs. Carter," she says, her voice careful, "we can stop at any time. You don't have to decide everything today." I tighten my grip on the pen. If I walk out without signing, I'll talk myself out of it, and I can't afford to do that anymore. She nods and slides the first page closer. The signature line waits at the bottom. Linda Carter. My phone buzzes again. For a moment, I'm not here anymore. I'm 3 weeks earlier, standing in a white hall filled with white lights and soft music, still believing I had a son who loved me. People always ask how things like this happen. How does a son go from promising to take care of his mother to asking for her house? It doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly, quietly, in moments you excuse because love teaches you to explain things away. My name is Linda Carter. I'm 67 years old. I raised my only child on this land. My grandfather bought it with coal dust in his lungs and fewer fingers than he started with. My parents held on to it through layoffs and long winters. When my husband, Mark, died suddenly at 56, it became my responsibility to keep everything standing. I remember one night after the funeral, sitting at the kitchen table with unpaid bills spread out like accusations. The house was too quiet. The refrigerator hummed louder than it should have. Daniel, just a teenager then, came out in his pajama pants and asked, "Mom, are we going to be okay?" I smiled when I didn't feel okay at all. "Yes," I told him, "as long as we have this house, we'll be fine." He looked around the kitchen and said, "One day I'll take care of this place for you. You won't have to worry." If you're a parent, you know what words like that do. They don't land in your ears. They settle in your bones. After Mark died, I worked more. Days at the clinic, nights when I could get them.
I came home exhausted, but I still tried to keep things normal. Hot meals, clean clothes, questions about school. Daniel was a good kid, not perfect, but kind enough. He mowed the lawn, he helped with groceries. Once, when the water heater burst, he stood barefoot in the basement holding a flashlight while I figured out how to shut it off. "Don't worry," he said. "One day I'll make enough money so you never have to stress like this." We laughed, but I believed him. That's how it starts. You remember the good moments. You store them away like savings, convinced you'll be able to draw on them later. You don't notice the withdrawals, the shorter phone calls, the holidays he couldn't make, the way conversations slowly shifted from "How are you?" to "Do you still have?" When he moved across the state for work, I cried after his car disappeared down the road. Not in front of him. I never wanted to be that kind of mother. I wiped my face, made a sandwich, and went back to work. Then he met Emily. He sounded happy when he called. Really happy. "She's smart, Mom. She understands money. She wants to build something." The first time they visited, she walked through my house slowly, like someone evaluating a purchase. "This is a lot for one person," she said lightly. "Have you thought about downsizing?" They asked questions. How many acres? What's it worth now? Was there still a mortgage? I answered them, because they were family. Looking back, the warning signs were there. The jokes about unlocking equity. The way she said "your house" to me, but "our future" to Daniel. I felt uneasy, and I ignored it, because that's what mothers do. I held on to the boy who once promised me I wouldn't have to worry. I didn't know then that the night everything finally broke would come with fairy lights, champagne, and my son asking me to leave his wedding. The invitation said the ceremony started at 4. My nerves woke me at 3. By 6 in the morning, I was already on the road. Old sedan, coffee in a thermos, my dress hanging carefully behind the passenger seat. The sky was still gray, the kind of morning that feels undecided. In the cup holder sat an envelope. Inside was a check for $8,000. It had taken me a year to save. Extra shifts, fewer groceries, telling myself I wasn't really hungry when prices went up again. "Weddings are expensive, Mom," Daniel had said months earlier. "It would mean a lot if you could help." And of course, I had said yes. I didn't call it sacrifice. I called it love. 4 hours later, I pulled into the venue parking lot and sat there for a moment, with my hands on the steering wheel. Shiny SUVs lined the rows. People laughed as they stepped out in pastel dresses and pressed suits. "Just be happy for him," I whispered to myself. "Don't cry. Don't make this about you." Inside, everything smelled like flowers and perfume. Candles flickered in glass cylinders. Soft music floated through the room like something borrowed from a movie. Then I saw him. Daniel stood near the front in his suit, tugging at his cuffs, nervous and handsome. For a moment, everything else faded. He caught my eye across the room and lifted his hand in a small wave. I smiled back. That moment, just that moment, was enough to carry me through the rest of the day. The ceremony was beautiful. Emily walked down the aisle in lace and white. Vows were spoken. People cried. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," the room filled with applause, and I clapped too, blinking back tears. I stood near the dessert table during the reception, watching my son laugh, watching guests dance, watching strangers pose for photographs in front of a future I was not part of. I kept touching my purse, feeling the envelope inside. I rehearsed what I'd say when I gave it to him. "I know it's not much, honey, but your father would be so proud." I imagined a hug, a quiet thank you. I didn't notice at first how people looked at me, the way Emily's mother smiled without warmth, the way a bridesmaid whispered to another and glanced in my direction. I straightened my dress and told myself I was imagining things. "Mom," I turned. Daniel stood there, hands in his pockets, jaw tight. "Hi, sweetheart," I said. "Everything looks beautiful." "We need to talk," he said. Something in his voice made my stomach drop. "Of course," I replied. "Is everything all right?" "Can we step outside?" he asked. "Just for a minute." We moved through the crowd together. Music thumped behind us. Laughter rose and fell. No one noticed the groom and his mother slipping away. We stopped near a quiet corner by the side doors. "Daniel," I said gently, "what's wrong?" He didn't look at me. "Mom," he said finally, "I need you to leave." For a moment, I was sure I'd misheard him. "I'm sorry?" I asked. "Emily is uncomfortable," he said. "It's her day. I have to put her first." I searched his face for something familiar. "Daniel," I said quietly, "I drove 4 hours to be here. I helped pay for this wedding. I haven't caused any trouble." He finally looked at me, and what I saw wasn't anger. It was embarrassment. "I don't want a scene, please. Just go." The music swelled behind us. Someone laughed loudly. Glasses clinked. "I'm your mother," I said. "And she's my wife. I have to choose her." I looked past him towards the head table. Emily sat there, watching us. When our eyes met, she smiled. Not cruelly, not triumphantly, just satisfied. That was the moment I understood. My presence wasn't welcome. My feelings were optional. I nodded. "All right, if that's what you want." Relief crossed his face. "Thank you," he said. "We'll talk later." Later. I walked back to the dessert table, picked up my purse, and felt the envelope inside. For a moment, I considered leaving it behind. Then another thought arrived. Quiet, steady. They don't want me here. They don't get my sacrifice, too. I kept the envelope. No one stopped me as I walked toward the exit. No one asked where I was going. The music grew louder, as if trying to drown out my footsteps. Outside, the sun was blinding. I sat in my car without starting the engine. My hands shook so badly I had to hold them together. "I'm fine. You're fine." But something inside me had broken. I drove home in silence. No radio, no calls, just the sound of tires on the road and my son's voice repeating in my head, "I have to choose her." By the time my porch light appeared in the distance, I felt older than I had that morning. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my living room in the dark, listening to the house settle around me. And the next morning, while the wedding flowers were probably still fresh, my phone rang. It was Daniel. And this time, he didn't speak to me like a mother at all. I didn't plan to answer. When my phone started buzzing that morning, I was out in the yard pulling weeds, still wearing the same sweatpants I'd slept in. The sky was bright and clear, too bright for how heavy my chest felt. The phone vibrated again. Daniel, my son. For one foolish second, my heart lifted. Maybe he couldn't sleep either. Maybe he realized how wrong it was. Maybe he was calling to say he was sorry.
I wiped my hands on my pants and answered. Hello? Hey, Mom, he said brightly. Did I wake you up? The cheerfulness in his voice landed like a slap. No, I said. I've been up. Good. Listen, I won't keep you long. We're heading out, but I had a quick question. No apology. No, are you okay? No mention of the night before. What is it? I asked. You still have all the paperwork for the house and land, right? The deed and everything. I sat back on my heels in the dirt. The deed? I repeated. Yeah, he said easily. I was talking with Emily's cousin last night. He's in real estate, and he thinks now might be the perfect time to finally do something smart with the property. Something smart? You mean sell it? I asked. Not necessarily all of it, he said quickly, but you've got a lot of unused land. You're just one person, Mom. It's too much. We could split it, build something, unlock the equity while the market's high. I looked around me. The oak tree my father planted, the porch Mark painted with his own hands, the flower bed I was kneeling in. I live here, I said. Exactly, he replied. For now, but we should be realistic. You're almost 70. This place is only going to get harder to manage. Almost 70. We could get you into something easier, he continued. There's a really nice 55-plus community near us. Pool, clubhouse, medical staff. You'd have friends. You'd love it. I have a home, I said again. He sighed. Mom, don't take this personally. I'm just thinking about your future. You kicked me out of your wedding last night. There was a pause. Emily was stressed. It was a big day. We'll talk about that later. Later. We're talking now. You're asking me about my property. Our property, he corrected. I mean, eventually. I'm your only child. It's going to be mine one day anyway. I'm just trying to help you use it while you can. Something in my chest tightened. You're calling me about your inheritance, I said. That's not fair, he snapped. This is business. We could set you up comfortably and still invest for our future. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. Have you thought about apologizing before asking me for the deed? He exhaled sharply. Mom, you're being emotional. This is time sensitive. Emily's cousin needs to see the paperwork today. Today? I repeated. Yeah, he said. Just take pictures and send them over. That way we can get the ball rolling. I stared at the dirt on my hands. There was a time when he asked how I was before asking for anything. I'm not sending anything today, I said. What? His voice sharpened. Why not? Because this is my home, and I need time. We don't have time. Opportunities like this don't wait for you to process. Process. I'm going to take some time, and you're going to respect that. You're being stubborn, he snapped. Emily was right. You cling to things because you're afraid of change. He quoted her. That hurt more than anything else he'd said. I have to go, I said. I'll call you when I'm ready. When? He demanded. When I'm ready, I repeated. Mom, don't hang. I ended the call. The phone buzzed again and again. I turned it off. In the quiet that followed, a new thought settled in, slow and steady. What if you stop waiting for him to protect you and start protecting yourself? I wiped my hands, went inside, and climbed the narrow stairs to the hall closet. Behind winter coats and a box of old Christmas lights was a small metal lockbox. Inside were the papers Daniel wanted so badly. I carried it to the kitchen table and rested my hand on the cool metal. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking like a mother. I was thinking like the woman who had kept this place standing. And the next call I made was not to my son. The lockbox felt heavier than it should have.
not because of the metal, but because of what it held. I carried it to the kitchen table and opened it slowly, like I was afraid of what I might find inside. Everything was where it had always been: the deed, old tax papers, insurance documents, and at the bottom, the will Mark and I had signed years ago, back when our son was still young enough to leave his shoes in the hallway. I spread the papers out and sat there with a cup of coffee growing cold beside me. For years, I'd told myself everything was settled, that one day, when I was gone, it would all be simple. Now I saw it clearly. Simple for him, not safe for me. I stared at Mark's name on the page. "You always read the fine print," I whispered. "What am I supposed to do now?" The louse didn't answer, but the thought did. You ask someone who reads fine print for a living. Calling a lawyer felt like admitting something I didn't want to admit, that love alone wasn't enough to protect me. Still, I found the number at the bottom of the old paperwork. Howard and Lane, Main Street. The receptionist answered on the second ring. "My name is Linda Carter," I said. "I need to review my will and property documents, and I'm feeling pressured by my son to sign things I don't understand." There was a pause, not surprised, just familiar. "Of course," she said gently. "Let's get you scheduled." 2 days later, I climbed the narrow stairs above a bakery and stepped into a small waiting room with brown chairs and a tired-looking plant. The smell of bread drifted up through the floorboards. The attorney came out to greet me. Miss Howard was around my age, with gray streaks in her hair and kind eyes behind sensible glasses. She said, "Let's see what you've got." In her office, I laid the papers out on the desk. She read carefully, making small notes in the margins. When she finally looked up, I braced myself. I expected her to tell me I was overreacting, that downsizing made sense, that sons were entitled. She didn't. "You're not wrong to feel pressured," she said calmly, "and you're not imagining the shift in your son's behavior. I see this more often than you'd think." Something inside me loosened. "This will," she tapped the page, "was written when your life was very different. You have every legal right to change it." "Even if it upsets him?" I asked. She met my eyes. "Your job is not to make your adult child comfortable. Your job is to make sure you are safe." I swallowed. "You don't owe anyone your house while you're alive, and you don't owe anyone your future." Those words landed softly and stayed. She explained my options slowly: a revised will, a trust, protections that made sure I stayed in control. "This isn't about punishment, it's about protection." I nodded. By the time I left, the weight in my chest had shifted, not gone, but manageable. I stepped out onto Main Street holding a folder with my name on it and realized something surprising. I felt steady. Not angry, not triumphant, just steady. For the first time since Mark died, my future didn't feel like something someone else was waiting to claim. The drive home from the law office felt different than the drive to the wedding. No rehearsed speeches, no hope fighting disappointment, just a quiet resolve riding beside me. The folder Miss Howard had given me sat on the passenger seat, weighed down by my purse. Inside were drafts, clear, deliberate, unmistakably mine. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked the same. Same worn porch rail, same wind chimes tapping in the breeze, same oak tree standing where it always had. But I wasn't the same woman walking back inside. I made tea, not because I wanted it, but because it slowed my hands. The kettle whistled, steam curled upward, small, ordinary sounds that reminded me I was still here. Then I turned my phone back on. It vibrated endlessly. Missed calls, messages stacked on messages. I didn't rush. I read them slowly, not like a worried mother, but like someone gathering facts. Why are you ignoring me? We need to move fast. This is my inheritance too. Emily's cousin needs an answer. You're making this difficult. There wasn't a single message asking if I was okay. I set the phone down. For the first time, I let myself say the truth out loud. I love him, I said, to the empty kitchen, but I don't trust him. The sentence didn't shatter me the way I expected. It steadied me. That evening, I walked the property. I ran my hand along the fence line. I stood beneath the oak tree my father planted. I stopped at the place where Mark's ashes rested beneath the maple. I'm still here, and I'm not finished. The next morning, I called Miss Howard. I'm ready, I said. I want to put the protections in place. We went line by line over the next few days. Nothing rushed, nothing hidden. A trust that ensured the house remained under my control while I was alive. Clear language stating I was of sound mind and acting freely. The will was revised. Daniel would receive something, enough to be fair, not enough to hold me hostage. The rest would go where it had already been going quietly for years, toward people who showed up without asking for anything in return. When the paperwork was complete, I didn't feel victorious. I felt aligned, like my actions finally matched what my heart had known for a long time. There would be consequences. I understood that. He would be angry. He would call it betrayal. But for the first time, those fears didn't outweigh my need for peace. And when the final documents were ready to sign, Miss Howard asked me one question. Are you certain? I didn't hesitate. Yes, I said. I'm done being afraid of losing someone who already let go. The pen is in my hand again. Same law office. Same stack of papers. Same clock on the wall measuring time I no longer feel rushed by. Everything is signed. The final documents sit neatly in front of me. No loose pages, no unanswered questions. For the first time in a long while, there is nothing left to negotiate with myself. My phone vibrates on the desk. I don't look at it. Ms. Howard meets my eyes. If you'd like to make the call now, she says, you can. I nod. She dials the number and places the receiver in my hand, then turns slightly away, not listening, just present. The line rings once. Mom? Daniel answers, already impatient. Finally, I don't know why you're doing this, but we need to… Daniel, I say calmly, I'm not calling to argue. I need you to listen. He exhales. Fine, he says. Go ahead. I take a breath, not because I'm nervous, but because I want to speak clearly. I've reviewed my will and my property documents, I say. I've spoken with a lawyer, and I've made decisions to protect myself. There's a short pause. What decisions? He asks. I've placed the house and land into a trust, and I've updated my will. His voice sharpens immediately. You can't do that. That's my inheritance. No, I answer. It was my life. Now it's my responsibility. He scoffs. So you just went behind my back? I took care of myself, I say, something I should have done sooner. This is because of the wedding. You're blowing one bad moment out of proportion. I don't raise my voice. This isn't about one moment. It's about what came after. You asked me to leave your wedding, And the next morning, you called me about my property before you asked if I was all right. He says nothing. I realized something then. I was being spoken to like a resource, not a mother. That's not fair, he mutters. I'm not asking you to agree, I'm telling you my decision. There's movement on the other end. Pacing, maybe. So what? He says. You're cutting me out? I'm setting boundaries, I reply. You will receive what I've chosen to leave you, nothing more. And the house will not be used for plans made without me. You're punishing me, he says. I'm protecting myself, I answer. Those are not the same thing. His breathing grows louder. You're choosing strangers over your own son, he says bitterly. I'm choosing peace and safety and dignity. Silence stretches between us. Finally, he says, Don't call me when you need help. The words hurt, but they don't frighten me anymore. Daniel, I say quietly, I've needed help before. I found it. He doesn't respond. The line goes dead. I lower the receiver slowly and place it back on the cradle. The office is quiet again. Ms. Howard looks at me. How do you feel? She asks. I think for a moment. Sad, but steady. She nods. That's what choosing yourself feels like. I gather my things and step outside. Cars pass, people walk by. The world continues, unaware of what just ended. And as I stand there in the sunlight, keys in my hand, one truth settles gently into place. Nothing was taken from me. I am still here. The house is still standing. My life is still my own. And for the first time in a long time, no one is waiting for me to give it away. The house was quiet when I got home. Not the hollow kind of quiet that echoes back at you, but the honest kind. The kind that says nothing is wrong simply because nothing is loud. I set my keys on the table and stood there for a moment, listening. The refrigerator hummed. The clock in the living room ticked. Wind moved through the trees outside like a slow breath. Everything was still here. That night, I slept. Not perfectly, not deeply, but I slept. In the days that followed, life didn't transform into something magical. No sudden happiness, no dramatic relief. It softened. Mornings came with coffee on the porch instead of anxiety in my chest. I stopped reaching for my phone every few minutes, waiting for his name to appear. When it didn't, I didn't fill the silence with blame. I filled it with living. I walked the property more often, slowly, carefully, noticing things I'd rushed past for years. The way the oak tree leaned slightly east, the way the porch boards creaked in familiar places, the way sunlight settled on the kitchen floor in the afternoon, like it always had. Nothing here was asking anything of me. People sometimes think peace means everything is resolved. It doesn't. Peace means you stop arguing with reality. Daniel didn't call. And that hurt, because of course it did. But the hurt didn't own me anymore. It sat beside me like a quiet companion instead of standing on my chest. Weeks passed. Then one afternoon, a woman from church came by. She stayed for coffee. We talked about ordinary things, aches, weather, grandchildren she didn't see often enough. Before she left, she hesitated at the door. I didn't know where else to go today, she said. Thank you for letting me sit. That night, I realized something. This house had never just been an asset. It had always been a shelter. Not just for family, for people who needed somewhere safe to land. And maybe that was enough. I didn't stop loving my son. Love doesn't turn off like a switch. But I stopped confusing love with surrender. I stopped believing that being a good mother meant disappearing piece by piece. I learned something late in life that I wish someone had told me sooner. You can love deeply and still say no. You can give generously and still protect yourself. You can be kind without being used. If you're listening to this and parts of it feel familiar, if you've ever wondered whether it's too late to choose yourself, I want you to hear this clearly. It isn't. Not at 60, not at 70, not ever. Strength doesn't arrive all at once. It comes quietly, in small decisions, in unanswered calls, in appointments kept, in papers signed, in nights where you finally rest. I still live in the same house, the same walls, the same land, but I live here differently now, not as something waiting to be claimed, as someone who stayed. And that is enough.